Trauma Uncensored.
Trauma Uncensored.
Trauma Uncensored.
It's funny to me that people don't know what we were saying right before we hit record.
When we come in laughing. Yeah.
But here we go. All right. So welcome everyone back to the Trauma Uncensored podcast. I'm Andres Gamboa. This is regularly hosted by Brooke Shearer, and today we have Michelle Bandy Davis back with us. If you don't know, or if this is your literally first time to play on this podcast, she was with us just last week. Highly recommend go check out that episode first, because this is going to be a part 2 of that episode, and we teased about what was happening in this episode. But in case you don't want to do that, in case you don't feel like going back, I'll have her recap a little bit about what we talked about last week in just a moment. More further welcome to you. If this is your first episode, find us on Instagram, social media, all that stuff. We're on all of them, wherever you like to get your podcast as well. Make sure you hit subscribe and follow if you like what we do. And if you don't like it, well, don't tell anybody. You don't have to be here. But thank you for giving us the time. Although I think you're going to enjoy this podcast as a whole. We talk about trauma in a way where it is a little bit more grounding, a little bit more real, and a little bit more helpful for those of you who are tired of listening to psychologists tell you about how you should or should not be feeling. None of us here are psychologists. I am a stand-up comedian, for the love of God. So I have no place to be telling anybody what to do, but we do share some stories that may inspire you, or maybe help you feel more powerful to your circumstance, and maybe just find you at the right place at the right time, wherever you are in your trauma or in your grief. We have shared some really impactful stories, so highly recommend checking the rest of those out for sure. Our episodes drop every Monday. So if you're listening to us on a day that isn't Monday, make sure you subscribe so you get that notification that we have dropped a new episode. Any other announcements that I'm missing, Brooke, before we jump in?
I think that's it.
Did I nail that? Okay, good. Good.
That was very good, actually. I was sitting here thinking, I'm glad you're doing it and not me. That's what I pay you the big bucks
I
for.
try to switch it up every time, you know what I'm
You're
saying?
very
Make
good.
it
You're
make it a
very
little
good.
original, a little bit here, a little bit
Very
there.
good.
All right. So I instead of me doing the recap of because I don't, I've only heard the story just the one time. Plus, I guess I could have gone back and hit repeat on the episode that dropped today, the part 1. But instead, I think it'd be good to have Michelle just kind of do a quick recap of to what we're up to now, because holy shit, it was crazy last week, and I am so honored that you were here again to share more of your story. So Michelle, please take it away. Previously on Trauma Uncensored.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back. And I agree. After I thought about it last week, I'm like, this would have been a lot to cover, like both the, childhood, adult all at once. But I'm happy to do a quick recap, because they certainly do go hand in hand. What I experienced as a child certainly set me on my trajectory as a young adult and into my 20s and 30s. So as a kid, I was born to teenage parents, and I was born in 1979, so it was the early 80s in my early childhood. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, parents were living it up, doing their thing, and there was a lot of neglect and attentiveness as parents for my sister and I experienced sexual assault early on in childhood for the duration of my childhood. Sexual assault from men who were coming and going in and out of the house, who were their friends, that were people that we knew that were like good buddies, but still experiencing sexual assault from them. My parents divorced when I was 10 years old, and I experienced intense physical abuse from my mother. From the moment of my inception, I knew she didn't want to have this daughter. And then I was born, and despite everything I was going through, I was super mouthy, and a lot of talking back and challenging what the situation was, even though I knew it wasn't right. That led to difficult teen years, a lot of feeling of unworthiness, low value, low self-esteem, depression. I attempted suicide after my first year of college, and was just really lost and struggling, and didn't know who I was other than abandoned, neglected, and abused. And that tees us up right at the trajectory of where I met my boy's dad.
Great. Oh, that was actually a great recap, because
It was.
it was all of the sizzle, but not the full steak. You know what I'm saying? So it still makes people. I mean, if you don't want to go back and listen to the last one, then that's on you after that, because there's some details. It's an hour-long episode, hour and 10 or something, and definitely
Worth going back and listening to.
I mean, to be fair, all of them are, but damn. All right, so let's jump in after that wonderful background. Okay, so where we were is, and this is what I remember on my side, not to overlap on the recap, but just I remember the feeling of thinking, holy hell, when is this poor woman going to be able to find therapy to kind of help her face, because at this point, one of the key things I remember that you had said is you didn't really know what had happened to you. Like, you knew it was wrong, but nobody had come up to you and said, hey, like, this is more than just wrong. Like, there's like layers to this that you need to go unpack before you can kind of start thriving again in your life, or I guess maybe even for the first time thriving in your life. But then that's not how it happened. Instead, you ended up meeting your then fiance and husband. So am I recapping that right from a standpoint of like the context of where you were at mentally? It's not like you had been working on yourself through college and your therapist helped you have a breakthrough, and then you met this guy and it was butterflies. That's not the way the story goes.
That unfortunately is not the way the story goes. I wish it had, but then we wouldn't be here. We've talked about this, right?
Yeah, so we did talk about that. So okay, so let's just pick it up from there. So now you're sitting there, you're in college. What are you, 19, 20?
19. I was 19 when I met my boy's dad. And I have to preface this right off the start. So my boys are now 19 and 21. So they are young adults. They are into the world. High five. We got them to adulthood, but it's still young adulthood. And before I even responded to the reach out about this podcast, it was important for me to have the conversation with them, because I've always wanted to be respectful of where they come from, because they do come from a place of love and of importance, but they also know they lived it. And I wanted to make sure that they felt good and supported in my decision to have my story, because I think for the last 20 years, being their mom has been the most important thing. And my desires, my own story was not as important. So luckily, obviously, I'm here, and they both were incredibly supportive, and both said, Mom, if you can help someone, it's your story, do it. So there we go.
And good for them, and good for you for raising children who, you know, have that ability to, sorry, I'm looking for a pen to take my own notes. Hey, look at that. But I'm proud of them and proud of you. You guys, you did a great job in raising, you know, children that are aware, and that is something that I wish was more prominent today.
Yeah. Being a cycle breaker, it has been so important to me. And certainly I never wanted for my boys to experience what they did, but still maintaining that cycle breaker mentality that just because it's what you know, it doesn't have to be what you are. And we're trying to rise above that and to do everything with love. Like, despite everything I'm going to share, I hold a very special place in my heart and my mind for their dad, or this individual, because he was very important to me for a very long time. And I shared on the last episode, he was broken in a million different ways from his own experiences as a child. I was broken. So when you bring two broken people together, it's not a setup for success.
So much heard. Very much heard.
Yeah. I think it's also important to note as we go through this, because, and we kind of alluded this before we recorded, but just for people listening. So in an effort to be kind, because my parents always say, you never look good talking bad about someone else. And so let's just make sure the intentions for this episode are known. And this is part of the reason why we pause here. This is not a roast of your ex-husband. This is not a defamation of your ex-husband. That is not the point. It's also not his story. And it might not even be his fault of how things went. I still don't know, by the way. I'm saying this as I don't know what's about to happen, so maybe I'm wrong here. But I'm guessing it's more like this is not his fault, but it's definitely your problem and some of his problem, which needs to be talked about, because things get messy when two people who have grown up with severe trauma or abuse or what have you, where it's like two bad storms colliding, right? Is kind of what this ends. So by nature, there ends up being damage, there ends up being debris, there ends up being hurt. And so this is not to make your ex-husband look bad or whatever. It's just telling the truth from what you experienced and what you felt going through this, to be just to be clear, right? So
well,
that way
that's a great point, because I talk to a lot of people, and I say a lot of times that it is my belief that people who separate or people who get divorced, it's not about falling out of love with them necessarily. It's
correct.
As time goes on and those childhood wounds, especially if they're very deep, and then adding everything else on top of it. And if you weren't, honestly, how many kids are ever brought up with the tools to face adversity, to face trauma, to face, experiences? And, we learn so very quickly, our bodies learn how to survive through those, and they build unhealthy responses, unhealthy behaviors, but it is a survival mechanism. And if you aren't taught early on how to regulate through those and how to shift directions through those, then you're carrying that shit, all the way through, along with other things that are piling on and piling on and piling on. And if two people are trying to coexist with two very different, response backgrounds, survival backgrounds. Like, for example, Jordan and I have completely different survival backgrounds or survival mechanisms completely. And it that can be very, very hard. Because, he shifts into one way, and for me, I become quiet and distance and put up a wall and shut down mode and all of that. I'm doing better, though. I'm starting to learn. I'm actually choosing myself now. I would like to tell everyone, and I'm, advocating using my voice, creating boundaries. It's like a whole new world for me that I never knew existed. And, day by day, I feel like I'm getting better and better. And it's got to be both parties that are willing to recognize those survival mechanisms, their behaviors, their attitudes, and so many other of the parts that play into these marriages, and be willing to say, okay, this is what I've carried in, and this is what I've carried in. And how do we change these about ourselves before we're able to actually change together? And so I don't believe people honestly, I don't believe people fall out of love. You fall in love in the first place for a reason. And unfortunately, a lot of us have learned since day one these unfortunate survival mechanisms. And when you're living with someone and it's just day to day and you both are, presenting those to each other, there's just going to come a point where at least someone is going to say enough is enough. And that's a hard decision. That is a very hard decision to make. And for self-preservation, and you may still love that person. It may not be a matter of lacking love, and also your boundaries to remove the toxicity, the bad behaviors, the hurtful behaviors, is also needed. And I don't think a lot of us are taught how to do that, or taught how to work together, like individually, but also together in order to make a relationship or a marriage survive through, what our bodies are just constantly going back to and saying, no, this is comfortable. This is what I know. This is how I protect myself. This is how I respond. And I don't know, Michelle, from what I gathered last week and what I've heard just a little bit, in this, that was the situation with you. It wasn't a matter of lack of love. It was just harmful, toxic,
so
unhealthy.
With all that said,
yes, sorry, tangent, Brooke, tangent.
All good. With all that said, that doesn't mean that that the accountability doesn't still land on whoever's supposed to land on. I'm not trying to also defend someone either that doesn't need defending. I'm just saying your intentions, or at least I'm hoping for our intentions as a conversation, is not to shame anybody. It's just more to be like, hey, the whole point of this podcast is trauma uncensored, as in we're going to talk about your trauma uncensored, period. Now, there are moments of privacy. So but this is also, I don't know if this will happen or not, but warning, if you later, as you're listening to this, feel like there's a cut or something like that, it's because we probably had to protect someone's privacy. And there's a fine line between uncensored and privacy. That's for our judgment. It's our show, so it's technically Brooke's show. So she is the ultimate decider on that. But you might forgive us for some moments of privacy if that is needed. But again, this is as openly and as uncensored as possible. So with all of that,
All of it. Here we are.
All of it.
the
So
red
I'm
carpet
19
is yours.
years old. Yeah, I'm 19 years old, and I meet him. He was 6 years older than I was. And this man is charisma at its best. He's a huge personality. You are immediately like, I've never met anyone like this before. He's outgoing. He's funny. He's engaging. He flirts with everyone, right? It's one of those type of personalities. And initially I was like, ooh, you're too old for me. He had been married before. He had a son. I'm not going there. But he was persistent. It was this regular, we worked together. I got a part-time job when I was in college and we worked together. He was very persistent every day. Let's go out. Finally said, if you go to lunch with me, I'll leave you alone. Well, I went to lunch with him, and then we proceeded to be together for 15 years. And, you know, I was enamored with him. Mostly the biggest draw was he wanted me, right? Like that's the first like red flag for me that I should have known. Had I been healed, I would have been able to notice. No one ever had, right? I was always dismissed and it wasn't of interest. No one pursued me the way that he did. And he did. And he was charming. And he came from a world that I had not known, in that he was successful. He came from a family that was successful. And by that, I mean, it wasn't just money. It was just a completely different lifestyle, right? Like he lived, it seemed like he lived, where I came from a super small town, and it was very limited, my exposure to what life could be like. But I think when looking back on it, very early on in our relationship, isolation began, right? And a need for control and occupying what I was doing, who I was spending time with. And because I had been so broken with my family, I did start to pull away from my family and was engulfed in this relationship with him. And I met him when I was 19. We got married when I was 23 years old. First of all, PSA, no one should get married until late 20s, in my strong opinion.
I agree with that entirely.
agreed.
I agree with that so much.
Like the amount of growth and change that happens from 23 to 30 is wild to me.
Yeah, every year I think from 18 to like 26 was, if you put down a pin and then go back a year before and a year later, I was 3 different people, like completely, like crazy.
Yeah. And I tell my boys, this stage of life, like 18 to 23, is one of the hardest, because you're learning who your identity is, you're testing things, you're learning autonomy. So getting married at 23, not recommended.
Wild.
But for those of you who have done it, kudos to you. High five. Love it. Love that for you. But in my case, it probably was not the best scenario. But, you know, we did get married, and I was happy. I thought I was happy. Were there signs of this not being the healthiest relationship? Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that I encountered was his interest in other women. And I would hear speculations, and perhaps maybe there were extracurriculars happening, but I was in total denial, and I did not want to know it, be a part of it, because I was who he married. We bought a house, and I was taken care of, so to speak, right? And I remember having a conversation shortly after I got married with my mama, who I referenced last week, and an aunt. And I said, I suspect that he's cheating. And my mama came from way back generation, and she said, well, then you have to do better. Right? It's on you as the wife.
Whoa.
Like you can control the happiness in the house. And I took that, right? Like right in. I'm like, all right, I have to be better. And I have to turn a blind eye, and he's here. and I got to make this work. Well, because of the trauma that I experienced with my mother and that constant yearning for a mother, I thought in my brain that it was going to be hereditary, that there's no way I would be able to be a mother and be kind and loving and engaging as a mother, because surely something in her prevented her from being able to do it. So it would be passed to me. But different plans, and I got pregnant on the birth control pill, and I was traumatized, truly. Like, I'm going to fail. I'm going to recycle. I'm not going to be able to mother this child. But it was different, right? I was pregnant with my first, and I was madly in love with him, and I didn't even know him. But I still had the fear. Wait, maybe my mom felt this way when she was pregnant with me and something changed. Maybe I was born and she was like, yeah, not worth it. So I was very scared to become a mother. He already was I was 25 when I was pregnant with my son, my first son. And he had already had a child. I was blessed with a stepson in that marriage who taught me so much. So he wasn't nervous. My ex-husband wasn't nervous about being a dad because he had already done it, and he was a good dad. I was a nervous wreck, but you know what? That kid was born, and he came out and he looked me straight in the eye, and he and I have been connected, soulmate ever since. It's like he looked at me and said, I got you, and I knew I had him, and I took a breath, right?
Nice.
And life was good. I have to say this, like, life felt very good. I was very happy. We had this adorable baby. I had my stepson. Things were going really well. I didn't want to have any more, though. I will preface that. I'm like, okay, we should be done. And I think deep down there was this unknown subconscious that I knew things were not always going to be great. And I feared volatility in that relationship. And that was a big protector, like I shouldn't have any more. But again, I get pregnant 2 years later with my second son. And he was born, and he is just joy, right? He was joy, the light of everyone. You encounter him and you smile. My sister always says, my boys, my older one is my pride, my younger one is my joy, my pride and joy. And it is very descriptive. Nice. And you know, things were good. We were busy. We were doing life. But through that process, I was working, he was working. We were building a life, so to speak. And I think from the outside, it appeared that we had a great life. We lived in a beautiful home. We had nice cars. We went on vacation. We had these adorable kiddos. But there was definitely a distance and a darkness that was occurring under the surface. And I think the biggest thing that I experienced at that time was that mental manipulation that I was nothing without him. That I had come from nothing, and now I had this life, and I could be nothing without him. And I believed it. And so that perpetuated this unhealthy connection, codependency. There was a lot of control. And again, I'm not trying to badmouth him. This is what he knew. It's where he came from. Yeah. He could do his own episodes about what he experienced with his mother. And I'm not speaking of anything negatively against her, but it was happening, and it was like this slow weave. And I think that happens a lot in relationships where it's this slow progression, and it doesn't feel like, oh, you're in a domestic situation. No, because it's like this slow evolution.
Right. So quick question on that, just a quick pause. So do you, how do I ask this? I'm just going to ask it, even though it's probably not the best way to ask it. Do you think it was intentional? I mean, to you it might be obvious, but, or do you think it kind of like just the chips, it was poised to end up this way because of the backgrounds? Or was it a mixture? Like, did he know he was manipulating you? Or was it one of those things where you just kind of look up, kind of like what you're saying, and you're like, oh, I'm kind of manipulating this person, or he's manipulating me, or whatever. Like, I don't know how that, because I've never been in a situation like that. So do you think it happened by accident or accidentally, intentionally? Does that make sense? Or was it a mix?
It's a really good question, and I can't speak for him. I don't know what his thought was. I can say that we did start therapy, him and I together, because it was very broken. And I remember early on in the therapy sessions, my it was marital counseling, and she asked to meet with just me. She said, sometimes I like to meet with just her, sometimes just him. And I met with her, and she said, you are in a marriage where a lot of manipulation and personality disorders are at play. I can give you the skills to exit, or I can give you the skills to stay. Well, I was in it. I'm like,
Whoa.
Absolutely not. I'm not divorcing with these two babies. My boys were probably 5, 6, around that age. And so he and I continued to do therapy with her, and she was giving me those skills on how to cope and how to maneuver and survive with what we were dealing with. And so I can't speak for him, but I would like to be hopeful that he didn't consciously know what he was doing. And I certainly wasn't bringing it to his attention. But that's me giving him the grace that I would hope someone would give to me.
Yeah.
But shortly, after he took a job here in Florida, because I live in Tampa now. We were from Indiana. He took a job, and he announced it at his mom's Christmas table and said, I took a job. I'm leaving in 2 weeks. And it was like, wait, what?
Oh,
and
you didn't know?
He did. He didn't. No.
He announced it to everybody. I thought
everybody.
I thought y'all knew, and he announced it to his mom or something. Oh,
no,
geez.
I knew that it was like an interest. We had talked about an interest in going Georgia, Florida. Like he had talked to this, that he was going to. Well, shouldn't have said that. His employer that he was going to, and but it was finalized that he had accepted, and he was leaving in 2 weeks. Now, mind you, my boys were about 8, 9 years old, and then his son lived with us, and he was a senior in high school. So the decision was made: he would come to Florida, I would stay in Indiana to see through the oldest senior year, get him through graduation, and then the little boys, and I would get to Florida. And I think when that separation happens, like that's a definite marker on, okay, the fault in the system really started to breach. He was left to his own devices, living in Tampa without a wife and kids to keep him grounded. And I was lonely. I had been lonely and sad. And I had not done any individual therapy at this point. I had only done the marital. And I had really thrown myself into being the best person, right? I said that in high school. I just wanted to be good enough. I was involved in my kids' school. I was taking them to church. I was active in the community. I was trying to be good enough. But I was still so broken on the inside. And so you talked a little bit at the beginning about placing blame, and I certainly won't do that because I have a lot of ownership in this and a lot of responsibility. And when he came to Florida, I engaged in my own extramarital affair. I engaged in active adultery, and to sit here today as a forgiven woman, it's really difficult to admit. There's so much shame that comes with it. I am not going to excuse it away like, oh, I was really messed up because I was abused as a kid and I was in an unhappy marriage, so I had an affair. But I did. And again, I think things happen for a reason. This person, I felt like he saw me for the first time. He was gentle, he was kind, and I truly felt seen. And that while it was brief, it gave me this internal realization of you deserve better. Like you're worth more and you deserve more. And yet I was so conflicted about moving to Florida, knowing that the situation wasn't healthy. But again, I grew up with absent father. So I'm like, my boys need their dad. So I packed those boys up and we came to Florida, and their dad and I were like, we're going to give this a shot. We're in it. We're going to make it work. And we happened to land into a community that literally operates like the set of the Truman Show or the Stepford Wives, where everything is perfect. Everyone is perfect. And so I walked right in and was like, I want to forget what I did in the past. And I want to make the best of this situation for my boys.
And nobody knew about your affair at this point. So this is all still you just, okay. I didn't know if you maybe had said something.
No, I had not. And talk about the way that can eat at the inside of someone, carrying around a secret and shame, and embarrassment like that. It's still my nervous system still reacts because it was so unhealthy. I was so unhealthy. But that's a good, yeah.
Oh no, I'm trying to gracefully want to ask a question like Andreas interjects. He's so great about it. I'm just like, how old were you? Have you, and this is a curiosity for me, have you ever done, and I'm sure you'll probably get to this later, but I think it'd be good to address now because it sounds like you still carry a lot of those emotions with you, the shame and all of that. Have you ever heard of or have done anything like EMDR or brain spotting or breath works or any of that? Okay. I was just curious, and I'd like to.
Yes, you're so spot on. And yes, it wasn't until after my divorce that I started in the EMDR, and I truly believe it was a life-changing game changer for me.
I'm just curious with still carrying some of the shame and the guilt with that. Because I'm going to be that person who's going to be like, you were doing all that you knew how to do at the time. And I'm going to be the one who says, and those past traumas and those past hurts and needs, all of that together, have grace. I want to encourage you or invite you to have grace for yourself and try to let that shame go. Only because I understand, I hear where you're coming from. I do. And not in that specific way, but in a multitude of different, and it's very hard. It is very hard to shut down that guilt and shame. It is. And for me personally, it also keeps me prisoner to moving forward. If I guilt myself and say, why wasn't I stronger before, then I assume all of the fault for so many things that I think could have been different. I mean, and Logan's death plays into that as well. Logan's death folds right into it. And that's a massive mind fuck for me. And I have to be like, okay, I'm going to give myself like a minute or 5 minutes to sit here and to allow myself to feel guilt and shame. And then I'm going to realize that there's so much that I was taught emotionally and mentally and codependently and all of these things growing up, in my own household with my parents. I didn't know any better. I didn't have the tools. Nobody was talking about it. And that's why I've said, if I would have known back then what I know now today, I do believe my life could have been completely different. Logan could potentially still be alive. And I wasn't supposed to then. And I haven't been supposed to. And now I'm supposed to in this time in my life. And so I just want to give you a great big hug and tell that inner child, you were doing the best you could for you, for your needs, for your traumas, and grace is a beautiful thing to allow yourself to have. You can have both. Just make sure you have both.
I agree with all that. Also should say, and we kind of talked about this about a different thing, but I don't know whether you believe in Christianity or whether you believe in the universe or whatever system of belief you have, whatever. I feel like it's weird how society places specific degrees of bad to things that are human. That's not to excuse them.
Right.
I'm just saying, like last time we were talking about slut shaming and how like growing up, you were a little more promiscuous throughout your teenage years because you didn't know any better or whatever, and you taught your boys how to like not judge people for that. But I think in the same way, our society really puts like heavy, like, holy shit, you had an affair. That's like the worst thing in the world. And it's like, dude, there's like murder, right? Like there's like severe abuse. There's other atrocities. Again, I'm not trying to make excuses or minimize damage, but I think it's interesting to me how society puts like such emphasis on like, because a lot of the shame and guilt you feel is because of the way society sees adultery. Do you know what I'm saying? Again, I understand why, and it makes sense. But it's interesting. I think I told my wife one time when we early on in our marriage, I'm like, if you cheat on me, I'm gonna stay with you. Like, I promised I was gonna stay with. Like, the only way that we're like not staying together is if you literally lose your mind and like kill our kids or something. Like, it's like it'd have to be something really like you're not you anymore, right? But if I find out you've been cheating on me, that would suck and it hurt painfully. But I promise I'd work on this with you, right? But I feel like a lot of people, that's where the buck stops. Like, I'll stay with you except for this, but they'll accept abuse and they'll accept a bunch of other shit. But this is the one that's too far. In my head, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many worse. I mean, it's terrible. There's a lot of terrible things you can do in a marriage, but there's so many worse things. But for some reason, we feel so much guilt about that.
Well, it's because society, isn't taking into account or isn't even aware of the underlying traumas and the underlying hurts and everything that goes on, not just in a person's background, but also within the marriage and who they are, involved with. I mean, and so society isn't taking the whole picture into account. They're just saying, now for me, because there is a lot of, not me personally, but I grew up with, people cheating, and I've been cheated on in the past, and for me that's a very hard line in the sand, because I have the mindset, I mean, now it is, today it's a very hard line in the sand, because I'm like, you know what, this isn't about me, this is about you. If that's what's going to happen, you need to fix what's going on with you, all of those hurts. It's not, because we start to look at things and think that it's a reflection on us, their behavior. But what it really is a cry or a need or a shame or something coming from the other person. And for me, because of what I've done and what I know now, I wouldn't be able to excuse it, because I'd say, go do your own work. Go do your work, because there is a reason you decided to look outside of the marriage. And if that happens, then I don't have the tolerance for that, because it's you who has to be doing that work.
But what I'm saying is that's fair, because you're not coming at it from like, you wouldn't shame Jordan for something like that, is the difference. Like, and
I have to tell you that he has not. I want to throw that out there, because I don't want people thinking, but in a past where people have with me, I mean, it's been there before. And I've watched family members do it. It's just, and like my dad, for example, I mean, he was hurting so bad inside. And, he made me into this very codependent daughter, and, very needful of me, but I also noticed it with a lot of women. He couldn't ever fulfill a loss. I think it was the loss of my mom when they got divorced. I don't know what his tendencies were before my parents got divorced, or before they even got married. But after they got divorced, I watched my dad just jump from woman to woman to woman to woman, needing to fulfill the whole, because he grieved my mom for the rest of his life. And that's a him problem, right?
Yes.
That's a him problem.
And that's I guess what I'm trying to say overall is, anybody here listening going, oh my God, she's a cheater, Michelle. I'm like, well, no, because if you grew up the way that she had to grow up, like if you had experienced what you had to experience, and then you come to a place where there's a human being that's treating you like a human being that has way more self-worth, like, than you ever thought you had in your own, everybody here would have made the same choice, is my point, right? Because it's not that you did that, it's just life happened, and then this is where you ended up making that choice, because it's more like, can you imagine the pain you were in that you chose that?
And nobody was talking to you about that. And that's why I believe these conversations are so critical for people, is because you were hurting. You had things going on, and you weren't, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you weren't aware of those, right? Those weren't even on your radar. They are now, but they weren't on your radar then, right? So you were driving to fulfill needs that you had. And nobody was talking to you about why you had those needs. What was the underlying groundwork, the foundation that led to all of those and why you were feeling the way you were.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's very important. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for that vulnerability, because I think this is a very important conversation.
Yeah.
You know, very important. If people were more self-aware, if they were taught to be more self-aware, if society was more self-aware, I don't think this would be a shameful type of conversation.
Yeah.
Again, not removing guilt and, you know, understanding the whys behind all of that.
Correct.
I'm not a therapist. I just play one on TV.
So you moved to Truman Show, Tampa.
Yeah.
And we're there. Okay. Sorry, carry on. So I just had to go on that tangent because I'm like,
It was so important, and you were so spot on. And the societal standards are there, but the double standard for women, right?
Yes.
You hear of
Also
a woman cheating. Oh my goodness, she's a Jezebel. Like she's like terrible mother, terrible woman. But
how dare you do that to your husband?
Yeah. Men have affairs, and it gets like,
he's lonely.
Well.
Do you know
he's
if
not
he
getting satisfied?
Did he
What
veer
are you
outside
doing
of the
wrong?
marriage while you were still in Indiana? So it was on both. It was on both sides.
There was certainly extracurriculars on his part when we were in Indiana, and then certainly once he got to Florida and I was still in Indiana, I think it was like wild times, partying it up, and yet I got here. I was still going to move forward, and the boys and I landed here in Truman Show, Stepford Wives, Tampa. And we really did try. And I think this goes back to our, this woven codependency that we had created. I loved him. I wanted to keep my family together, and I had that guilt. So I'm like, I have to try. Like, I haven't been innocent in all of this either. So we have to try to come together. Now, I have to say, I have to mark this, that fall of 2014 is the next 18 months are absolute blur for me, but I believe that it had to happen, or else I don't know where I would have been. If we had stayed in Indiana, would I have stayed in the marriage? Would I have gotten so desperate that I took my own life? Would the abuse have gotten? I don't know what would have happened, but I know that I moved to Tampa for a reason. And I actually lost everything and truly hit rock bottom in my life as a human, as a mother. But if I had never done that, I would not have survived. I would not have been where I am. So this is where it gets really ugly. But I'm still grateful for it today when I look back. So he and I got here. I thought, this fresh new start, we're going to do it. We weren't here long, and anything that happens in the dark always comes to the light, right? We've always heard those sayings. And so my affair came to light. And I think in him, it broke. I think the dam broke, and that anything that he had ever thought or experienced about that control or any kind of manipulation or abuse had been contained, but it was the fact that it was happening to him and he was not the one. It was a concept that could not be processed. And it was very ugly and very unsafe in our house. I was spiraling. Like, Brooke, you said that, right? I was in a space before I left Indiana when I had that affair that if someone had just grabbed me by the shoulders and said, "You're not okay, what's going on?" maybe it had been different, but it hadn't happened. So I'm continuing to downward spiral. I wasn't eating. I was like 100 pounds. I was desperate for normalcy, but my nervous system was off the charts. I feel like I was slowly mentally losing my mind without getting that getting that label as a crazy person.
You were going into fawn mode. Are you familiar with fawn mode? I mean, it wasn't even fight or flight or even freeze. I mean, freeze is a thing, but I think people come out of freeze easily, or not. I shouldn't say easily. Forgive me for that, but a lot easier. Fawn is just like, it can be, I mean, immediate, or it can be total shutdown. But think of an actual fawn, right? When they see danger, they just collapse and they shut down and they can't move and they can't, and because I understand fawn very, very well. That's what my body defaults to. And so I've learned a lot about it. And from what I'm hearing from you, yours wasn't an immediate, which my first one wasn't, because that's what happened to me before Logan died. The reason, well, not the reason, I won't say the reason, but, led up to Logan's passing was that I gradually started going into fawn mode to the point where I couldn't eat. I couldn't get off the couch. I couldn't. And so for me, that sounds like where you were starting to head. And in your mind, you're like, I'm going fucking crazy and I don't know what to do about this. And, you try this and you try this and you can't get out from underneath it. But just like you said, at that point, you're no longer in control. Your nervous system is so hijacked that it doesn't matter what you do, what you think, if you try to be positive. I started listening to Mel Robbins this weekend, which was very interesting. And she talks about fear and how there just comes a certain point. You just can't positively think yourself out of a situation. And that's what it sounded like you were headed into.
Thank you for that definition. I've never heard that description before, but it is absolutely what was happening. So I'm trying to make up to him, I guess, to tell him, like, yes, I want to be in this marriage. I want to keep my family. I don't want to lose my boys, because that was the overarching message. You are nothing. You will be nothing. You are a bad person. You're crazy. I will take these boys. You will lose these boys. And those boys are everything. So I was operating in the fear that I would lose those reason for my existence.
I'm so sorry.
And it got to the point that we had a fallout, because, mind you, at the same time, a lot of his dark was coming to the light, and it was not desirable for him, for me to know that the focus was still on me and what I had done wrong. And an incident occurred, and two broken people coming together. The violence, I am scrappy. I don't have this Mexican blood in me with my sass and my fire for nothing. And I'm not saying that it makes it excusable, but when things got physical, I was physical right back. And I am so ashamed to say that, but it's where I was in that true fight mode. And an incident had occurred and I left. Like, the house was in shambles. My boys were at school and I left. And I was in such a desperate mode, and I didn't know where to go. I wasn't working. I stopped working when I left Indiana. So I was under complete financial dependency, which is its own financial abuse, is its own topic that happens day in and day out. That women who are in happy marriages don't even realize, or they don't do anything about. Financial abuse is real. So I left that day and I sat in my car in a parking lot, and I thought, this is it. Like, I can't get out of this. I can't live without my boys. He's going to take my boys. I was definitely feeling suicidal. And I thought that was my only way to escape. And I remember sitting in this parking lot and seeing people in the world go on around me, this picture perfect life where everyone is beautiful and it's sunny and awesome. And I was in such a dark space. And he and I were texting, and he took the text that I had shared and he called the police. And this is where I think manipulation comes into play. And the police found me. And because I was discussing self-harm, they took me.
Took you in, yeah.
They took me in. In Florida, it's called a Baker Active, right? And it feels like a dream, like a true outer body experience. And this officer that took me, he said, I have to take you to a facility and I don't want to take you. He said, I think that you are a woman in a really terrible situation, but by law, I have to take you. He said, who can I call? He gave me the opportunity. Who can I call? I was ashamed. I'm like, you can't call anyone. I was not going to admit to my sister, who is my whole world, that I was an absolute shit show, that I had this affair, that my life was falling apart. I don't want my grandparents to know, because they all thought, she's freaking crazy. I can't believe she's going to Florida with this man. But that officer pulled over and he called my family. He called my mama, called my sister, and he said, I have to commit her. This is what's happening. They will contact you. Once I drop her off, I have no more contact. And I remember riding in the back of that police car, trembling, shaking head to toe. And he was so kind and so gentle, and he was pouring his love. And honestly, I think his faith and his commitment to encourage me that it didn't have to end. He got me to this facility in Tampa, and it was the scariest experience, undoubtedly. Like, it was a true temporary mental holding facility. I walked in, they immediately take my shoes, my belongings, and there were people that were legitimately schizophrenic, off, like not unmedicated, mental. A lot of unhoused people were there, and I had to go like be cycled in, and it was just truly like a holding area. At the time, I had long hair like I do now, and we're all just kind of community there, and I'm just sitting, and there's doctors. But they're like, who knows when you're going to get seen? It's usually 48 to 36 hours. So I'm watching and I'm scared to death. Like, what have I gotten myself into, Michelle? You should have kept your mouth shut. Several scary incidences with the people, because like there's no one protecting you. Like, if this schizophrenic person starts like talking to me, there's no one to like protect me from it. So just try to keep your head down, out of the way. I was able to see a doctor, a psychologist did do an intake evaluation, and it was just a lot of questions, right? Initially, they did not administer any medication, thankfully.
Huge,
yeah. But she said, okay, well, you're going to have to meet with the next therapist tomorrow. So I had to spend the night in this facility. And in the night, someone had come in. I talked about my hair for a reason. Someone had come in, a girl had come in, and they were checking her for, weapons, drugs, whatever. And there was a nurse doing the intake. Well, the girl grabbed her scissors. Somehow she got her scissors. And she was in a mental psychosis moment, and she cut my hair. And I was grateful that she didn't harm me with those scissors. Like, the orderlies or the people who worked there were able to get her and put her into an actual straitjacket. But she had cut my hair. And I remember thinking, this is as bad as it could possibly get. Like, not only am I in a mental hospital, now she has just chopped my hair. Like, I was just assaulted by a mental hospital. Like, how do you tell people that? Like, oh, you got a new haircut. No, I was in a mental hospital and a crazy person cut my hair. But that's what happened.
Right.
The next day, the same doctor who had done my intake, she pulls me in and she said, you're required to stay for a certain amount of time. She said, but I don't think that there is mentally anything wrong with you. I don't think that you are at risk of hurting yourself, because I've called your grandparents and I've called your sister and they're on their way. And when she said that they were coming, I said, like, they're coming now? She said, they're on their way. She said, I can't let you leave until you reach the maximum, like the required time. She said, but you have people who love you and they're coming. You don't have a mental problem. You have a domestic violence situation, and you have been in survival mode for so long that you are at your breaking point. And it was the first time someone looked at me and said, nothing's wrong with you. You're not crazy. Because he had been telling me I was crazy for so many years that I thought that I was. And I was just trying to be a good person, be a good mom. And I was scared. I said, he's going to use this against me. He's going to take the kids. And she said, I will make my report, all of the things. And that woman, I don't know her name. I couldn't tell you her face, but she gave me a gift that day that changed my life. So I was finally able to be released. I reached the time frame. But when I was released, there was no one there to get me because my sister and my grandma were flying from Indiana. They were in transit. He was not responsive to phone calls, texts, anything. So I was able to take an Uber, found an Uber, got picked up, and I'm like, I guess the only place I go is back to our house, I guess. And I went. Well, actually, the Uber driver drove me to my car, and I was able to get my car, and he was with the boys at baseball, like acting. I remember going to the parking lot and seeing him like interacting and thinking, I've just been through literal hell for the last 2 days, and like
He's
everything's
just at the
normal.
ballpark, yeah.
Everything's just at the ballpark with the boys.
He's just having popcorn and hot dogs.
Yeah. So my sister and my sister and my grandma got to me, and they poured their heart and soul into me in the love and said, whatever you have to do, we're here, and you can leave him. You can do this. Well, now I had gotten myself into a predicament because now we're in the state of Florida, and there was no way I could leave the state of Florida with my boys because we had to do all of our proceedings, divorce proceedings in the state of Florida. And Florida is very much a 50-50 state. So I was stuck essentially, and I couldn't go to my refuge, to the one place that I could go for love and support with my grandparents or my sister. So I had to go through this divorce process here in Florida alone. My grandparents paid for the attorney. My papa was an absolute saint of a human, and he said, we will do whatever we have to do, and you can do this. But through the divorce process, he, like I said, I wasn't working, and I'm like, I have to go back to work. But my attorney said, no, you can't go back to work because it's going to affect all the financials. So you can't work, but he still has obligation to provide for you. Well, that wasn't happening. So I had literally $0. And to be a woman who had once worked and had independence, and to have literally nothing, living in this environment where we lived, where everyone is affluent. I was living in a 6,000 square foot home with a swimming pool, but I couldn't buy groceries. I was driving a luxury vehicle, but I couldn't pay for a hot dog at the baseball field if my kid had wanted it, because he had literally cut me off from any access to dollars. So that's why I say financial abuse is real. And I think, not to defend him, but I think that was his way, right? Like that's where he could establish dominance and control. So my grandparents were sending grocery money, things for the boys, like the absolute necessities. And so we went through this volatile divorce that lasted almost a year, the back and forth. But like I said a few minutes ago, my boys were the only thing I wanted. I would give up anything if it meant I had my boys for as much time as possible. So we were able to finally agree, and I had primary custody of the boys, which is not standard in Florida. It's typically 50-50. But my attorney, his attorney, the judge she was a badass, and I'm so grateful I got the judge that I did. And she was very supportive of me. So I was able to maintain primary custody. There was visitation like every other weekend and so forth. And I remember when I had to move out of the nice house, the fancy marital home, and I rented a home, my credit was demolished. through this process, and I couldn't get approved for a rental. And I found one, and this man took a chance. He said, I've had tenants who looked good on paper, perfect scores, and they trashed my house. I feel like you're a good person. By this time, I had gotten a job. I was making well below what I was capable of, but it was a job. And he said, I'm going to take a chance. And he rented me this house. And I remember my boys and I first night in this home, and I was so self-conscious. The things that I thought mattered then, it was small, it was basic, it wasn't what they were accustomed to. And I remember the first night, and my boys were in my bed, and I was still apologizing, like, I'm sorry, this is the best I could do. And they said, Mom, this is awesome. We're all together. Our rooms are all together. Like, our bedrooms were so close. And that house, while it had a lot of opportunity, it's where I started to heal. It's where my boys started to heal, where we became a unit, the three of us, and I started to get my power back. And I bought my own car for the first time. I had never bought my own car. He was always the one that bought the car. I bought my own car. I was living in this house. I was paying my own bills, and it was so empowering. And I look back on that time. We lived in that house about 1.5 years before the owner decided to sell. And it was nothing but good memories and happy that we had in that house. And I'm just so grateful. I just dumped a lot. And I'm sure there might be a question in there. I don't know, a thought, a comment. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there's just I'm just listening at this because it's gripping. It's like, holy shit.
And I'm over here trying not to do the ugly cry, because I can
Me
relate.
too.
I can relate on so many levels, and I can't imagine on so many other levels. You know, and I mean, this is the thing. You will empower others to. This is why this podcast, again, I'm going to reiterate, is so important to me, because God, I had heard that, a long time ago. I don't know. See, look, here we go, starting to cry.
Okay, I have a question, and I'm sorry
To cut me off while I'm crying.
No.
It's fine.
No, Brooke, I'm giving you space to cry, but
I don't want to
so
cry.
hard.
I hate crying. I really do. For someone who's like, don't hide your emotions. I'm like, I hate crying.
I do too.
Ugh. That's like the ultimate show of vulnerability,
Hey, that's right. That's uncensored. Tears are uncensored. Mm-hmm. Boom. Real tears. Oh yeah. So you touched on it. I have a ton of questions, but I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna go little by little. You mentioned briefly when you go to this new house and you said, "Oh, I look back now on the things that I thought mattered." What matters now to you?
Love.
Okay, love that.
I actually
in life with love. Nope,
Yep.
It's love.
I saw a clip with, again, Mel Robbins. I don't know why all of a sudden she's just everywhere in my life, it seems. But I saw a clip this morning that mentioned, like, the biggest way you know that you have the right partner or something. And she said the number one telltale sign is if that partner feels like home. That partner feels like home. Like, do you come home and you're excited to come home and you're excited to see, which means I do believe that, the love is present and coexisting, versus you're coming home with the idea and you get home and your nervous system's already racked up and we're not listening to that. So love is, and I don't just mean marital love for the human race, for everything. But I found that interesting compared to what I had seen with her this morning.
I like that. If the person
home.
feels like home, write that down if you're listening. Mm-hmm. Everybody write that down.
Feels like home.
Okay, next question. Did you also, so you said this is the house where you started healing. Did you get your boys into therapy as well? Did you at some point have them start?
Yep.
Because as a, how do I say this? How old were they when this all was going down?
9, 8, 8 and 10.
8 and 10. Okay, so when my folks divorced, I was 22. My youngest brother was 11, and my other brother was 18. And we all, because we were in different stages of life, as you mentioned earlier, even between 18 and 22, it's a giant jump. Like, we all took it very differently. But I think we all probably, looking back now, I'm like, man, we all should have gone to therapy. Because when you're 11 and your parents divorce, it's much different than when you're 22 and your parents divorce. And I don't know if one's not worse than the other, but because I remember when my parents were in love. I remember that. My youngest brother doesn't have that memory. But then I also saw I was old enough to understand as I was falling apart. And I'm like, whoa, like, so. But then Julian, he was very like, oh, I have 2 houses now and I have 2 places to go home. And he was taking it positively, but then it would manifest itself later. So I guess the question, because of the different ages of the boys and all that they had witnessed and not witnessed, how did you approach therapy for them, healing for them?
So I got my butt right into therapy after I was released from the mental hospital. So that's where I started my healing and my journey, establishing boundaries, learning who I was, being able to speak up for myself, and acknowledge what I had experienced and that it wasn't my fault. So with the divorce, the boys did go. And in that birth order, in line with birth order, my oldest son instantly became my protector. I said he and I had this connection the day he was born, and he was a fierce protector of his mom. To this day, he is intense. He went into law enforcement because he said, I want to help people. I want to help people like you. Law enforcement isn't always able to help and intercede, but I want to help people. So he's been that protector forever, but that also comes with he isolates when things get intense. He harbors it and he feels like he has to carry the weight of the world. And now that he's 21, I'm like, dude, maybe you need to talk to someone, because while you feel like you're okay, these things are going to matter. And, he has met the woman that he wants to marry one day, and he thinks about being a husband and a father. And I'm like, you owe it to them to do that healing. And it doesn't have to be something wrong right now, but just get into it, right?
Yeah.
And my youngest son is happy-go-lucky, but with that comes its own responsibility, because he doesn't ever want to show his vulnerability and his hurt, because he wants to be happy for everyone.
Oh, brothers.
I don't know. I think
that sounds
that's
very familiar.
But also I think that's just kids in general, especially ones who have experienced, some sort of trauma. And let's be honest, how many haven't? I think that's my biggest fear through everything that Mallory specifically has been through all of her life. I mean, at 14, she has experienced and witnessed, and I mean, so much more than probably most adults will ever face. And, I talk about this a lot in therapy too, that it scares the shit out of me. I'm trying so hard to give her the tools that I'm learning, to encourage her to use the tools, to use her voice, to, advocate for herself. And I mean, with all people, with her parents, with her friends, but she just continues to see so much. And there are certain aspects that I can't protect her from. I can't. One certain thing in particular, I can't, by law, I just cannot protect her from. And that hurts, because I think I'm trying to do all of this for her. And she is in therapy. She's been in therapy since right after Logan died. She's been in trauma therapy, for 9 years now. And, but I also, the interesting part too, though, is that I have to, she'll tell me about something that happened, and I'll say, well, did you set a boundary? Did you use your voice? Did you say that's not okay? Did you use the word no? And she's still at that stage where it's very uncomfortable to do. She learns a little bit more and more. And then I ask her, I'm like, well, are you bringing this, information up with your therapist? And she'll say no. And I tell her, I'm like, your therapist only knows the amount of information that you're giving her and can't help you with the bigger things if you are not sharing that, if you're not being completely transparent and vulnerable while you're in session with her. I feel like starting that conversation with them is great, and the best we can do, which sucks because my kids are my everything. I will protect them as much as I can, as much as I'm willing. I would die for them, obviously. But I can't do it for her. I can't make her. I can't, all I can do is when she tells me these stories and she gets upset about something, I'll just say, did you say something? Did you advocate? Did you use your voice? And all of these, did you set a boundary and all of those tools? And I feel like repetition, at some point, there's going to be something that clicks. Something. Yeah. I mean, but as parents, it's our jobs to keep encouraging them to build. We can't be codependent and do it for them. We can't be helicopter parents. Obviously, certain situations you're going to step in, and giving them by giving them examples, right? Like them learning by example. I believe that they're going to be able to parse out at a certain point what's okay and what's not. And also I think they are listening. It just takes, and their prefrontal cortexes are still not fully developed. So, but then again, there are many adults with prefrontal cortexes that are developed and are still totally lost. I
think more than telling them is leading by example, right? Like I can't be telling my kid, hey, you got to figure out how to set boundaries if she's not seeing me set my boundaries.
Well, and my encouragement is to not tell. Like, don't tell them.
Right.
But say something like, I invite you to, or I encourage you to, because that's more of a non-confrontational way of...
And even more so, just doing it by example. Like, if I can't create a boundaries between work and, like, being with my kid, like, if I'm on my phone, on phone calls all day while I'm at the baseball game, for example, just as my kid's one, so she's not playing baseball. I'm just saying, like, this is a hypothetical example. And then I go in the car after the game and preach about boundaries. What the hell she's gonna be looking at me like, what do you know about boundaries, dude? You're preaching this stuff. You're inviting me to these boundaries, but you're taking phone calls at my game. Like, what are you doing? Or whatever. It's so like, but this goes everywhere. And I think that the way I see parenting especially with like trauma and stuff like that you were going through, and I think that's why your kids support you so much now, is because of what you said. You started to take your power back. And your kids saw that, right? More than anything you could say didn't do anything as far as the actions that you took to heal. And so I think what we do as parents is, my job, as I see it, is not to raise a good child. It's to raise a responsible, kind adult. And so, you got to begin with the end in mind. And the person that my daughter is going to be, she's becoming right now. So to try to fix her, or like try to like parent her where she is, I think it's wrong. I think you got to prep them for the next emotional step, right? Like if your kid's fucking up at 13, that started because you messed up something at 10. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you're behind. So going to therapy, for example, or talking to people openly about what's going on, that's all stuff that is leading by example. That transparency is leading by example. I did have
I have something. Can I piggyback on it?
Do it.
Also, so I was told the other day, basically, that I should not be crying in front of my children. And I'm like, hold up.
What?
Wait a minute. So you're telling, like, I need to watch, this isn't verbatim exactly, but something to the effect of, I need to watch my composure around my girls in the situation that's going on in my life currently. And I'm like, what? Hold up. So you're trying to tell me, and this is a societal thing, you're trying to tell me that I'm sad and I'm hurt and I'm having a difficult time, but I'm supposed to show my girls that it's not okay to cry. Like, I don't walk around talking negatively and all of these other things about anybody or what's going on, but it's been a difficult past couple months. And you know what? I tell my girls all the time it's time to or it's okay to cry. You know, they get upset about something. And obviously, if it's, you know, they're throwing a fit, it's a different story. But if they're genuinely upset about something, or, you know, they get hurt or something, it's okay to cry. I was never taught that as a kid. I was told to buck up, you know, and so I defended myself and I said, no, that is not okay. It's not like I'm laying in bed 24/7. No, I'm doing a podcast. I'm running a market. I'm going to all of my appointments. I'm going to my therapies. I'm getting out and exercising. I'm doing this. So they eat every single night. They get on the school bus every single day. We're still living and thriving. I can be upset and they can see it, and I can show them it's okay to have an emotion and honor that emotion. It'll come and it'll go, and it comes and it goes, and it isn't around nearly as much now as it was a little bit ago, but I'm never going to censor that. I'm never going to ever. And that is a part of teaching them now how to build those tools for later.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had to throw that in because
that's really good.
And that's what society does. They tell you it's not okay to feel. You have to stuff your feelings, and that's where the nervous system gets hijacked because we push it down and we push it down and we don't do anything about it. And we don't get the energy out, and we're not allowed to cry in front of people, and we can't emote, and we can't talk about things. Right. And then people end up like you and I. We get to a point where our nervous system goes into fawn mode, and we're like, I don't know what the hell's going on. Yep. And you're trying to figure it out and trying to do better, but you can't. And that's why I encourage, honestly, anyone who feels like they are in that situation to understand that you're not going crazy. Your nervous system, your body is literally prisoner to your brain at that point. Like, there's no just positively thinking yourself out of it. And that, for me, I only understood, honestly, when I went back to residential trauma. I mean, really understood it when I went back to residential trauma in 2023, because I was in that mode again. Yeah. And I got there, and that's because the first time I went, I wasn't in that mode, but I did trauma work. The second time I was in that mode, I went, and that's where I started to really understand why I couldn't figure that out in the summer of 2016 or in 2020, why I felt so lost. And it's because I literally was prisoner to myself, and there was nothing. So going there and taking a rest and, doing the breath works and the breathing and the trauma therapy and the EMDR and everything allowed my body, my nervous system to actually calm down. That's why you see people go into residential trauma and they're just in a really bad way. And it's not easy. The work's not easy. But, 4 weeks later, my aha moment came, I think, around 5 weeks. The first time where I really kind of, because I got into the work and then my nervous system was like, oh, this sucks. And then things started to, like, aha moments and clicking. So about 4 to 5 weeks into it, that's when I started to have these aha moments. But then it was once, the second time around, once they addressed the OCD, once they figured out the OCD, and then started to, I started to do work there and started to, actually be properly taken care of for that everything started calming down. Like, they found a lot of the root of my actual issue. I mean, trauma, of course, but trauma triggered the OCD, and the OCD creates very unfavorable rumination and behaviors. And, along with ketamine therapy helps between that and therapy. And of course the Prozac dose that I'm on, my head's so much quieter. I don't have all those thoughts, but that's what I know today. Like, I look back and go, holy shit. I thought I was, I went from being the successful professor to having a breakdown, and I couldn't figure out why. And I do believe, Michelle, when you were talking about having those thoughts, the suicidal thoughts, I do get curious around people who have hijacked nervous systems. And if that is something that the brain, it's almost like I mean, is it a primal thing? Is it primal? Is it ingrained in that when we hit a certain point like that, when our body is in that much of a survival mode that it shuts down, goes into fawn mode? Is that something? Because every time I've gone into fawn mode, unbeknownst by me, that's when those things happened. And it's very fascinating to me when you said that earlier, because I'm like, it's a curiosity.
Do you think, so question for both of you, I guess, you're not going crazy, you're actually going normal, right? Because it makes sense the way you're describing that, right? Like the normal thing would be, okay, you've gone through this insane amount of trauma that really we're not built for. We're not built for abuse and sexual abuse as a child. We're not built to experience severe loss in a child. Like those are things that you're not built for, right? That's not the human race. That's not as a species, right? And so when your brain goes into that, that's actually normal. Like you think it's going crazy, but in fact, it's actually trying to protect itself from total collapse, which is normal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That makes sense. So do you guys think, looking back now, that that there was no other way it could have happened? You know what I'm saying? Like, because it had to happen that way so you guys could almost like resuscitate, like clear.
Yep.
And then like you woke back up going, oh shit. Right. Or is that, I've never been to that point myself. So I'm asking, like, is that how you, looking back on it, what it feels like? Or is it like... For me,
yes, for sure. It was the resuscitation. I love that description that I needed to be able to start my life and become who I've always been intended to be. And I never would have gotten there had I not gotten to that.
Yeah, because it could have just kind of been mellow, and then you would have never had to deal with it, right? I mean, wow. Brooke, do you think that for you? Or?
So, mine was a course of that over 7 years, 8 years. So that's actually a really hard question for me to answer. So in my soul, yes, all of that shit needed to happen. All of that shit needed to happen in order for me to start becoming the person I am today, and to give me the tools to continue to support my life, to make choices that are really fucking hard, but I'm doing it because I understand that it has to happen, especially for me. Like, I feel today I'm finally breaking free of 45 years of codependent Brooke, and it doesn't mean that it's easy, but I'm choosing me. I'm choosing to take my power back. And none of that could have happened without all of those stages. So in a soul way, or if I'm to dig into my soul and dig deep down, absolutely. This journey has gone the exact way it's supposed to. And then I get into my brain and I think about all the times that I almost left my girls. And that sucks. And I think about how long it took. 8 years is a long time. 8 years. And the thing about it is that now I have the tools to be able to say, you have suffered for so long on so many different levels that it's no longer okay. I'm going to be different. I'm going to choose me. I had to go through all of that. And it's a very slow process, but I had to go through all of that in order to today choose me. I've never chosen me before. And I may lose things along the way because, not everybody appreciates or can, follow in those footsteps. But in all my life, I have never chosen me. So, yes, it happened exactly the way it was supposed to. And it has not been easy at all.
No.
It has been a really hard road. And I look and I'm like, there is a point where there will be full light again, where I will be able to breathe. I just got to get there.
You are getting there. Like, we never think about like when we're on the journey, we're only thinking about the destination. And we get there and we can look back and be like, wow, I did all of this. That's where you are.
Yeah.
And so you are progressing, even though it doesn't feel like you're not to that point yet.
Yeah, you know what the thing is I keep saying, especially to my dear friend Carolyn, who in fact is coming this weekend, and we're going to record with her this weekend while she's here. Yay! She's an EMT. I'm really excited for her to. I'm really excited for her to come on. And sorry, I'm not trying to take that away from you, or take this away from you. But she, I tell her all the time, I'm like, God, I'm stuck in the middle of the bullshit again. When is it just going to be the time where I can just breathe? You know, I hate being in this journey. That's the problem, is I'm fighting it right now. And I know better not to fight it.
Yeah.
PSA, if you fight it, it's going to last longer and suck even more.
So quick question. Okay, hold on. Well, first of all, are we good on time, Michelle?
Yep.
Okay. Because I have so many. Wow. Because Brooke, you're right. One of my favorite things is, in my opinion, and this is going to sound really morbid or backwards maybe, but I think the journey is more important than the destination. Because, and hear me out, even though things are hard for Brooke right now, things were hard for you or whatever, I think they're hard all the time. I think they're hard all the fucking time. And so where you are now is, as long as you feel inside, even though it sucks right now, is it better than where you were 8 years ago? You know what I'm saying? Like Brooke from let's see, September 16th, 2015. September 16th, 2015.
Oh yeah. Sorry, we did
the day
this
after
before.
Logan dies.
The day after.
And you tell that Brooke that you're here now.
Mm-hmm.
She takes that 10 out of 10 times, even though it's still hard now. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because that is the point, right? It's you'll get to this destination, but what happens is sometimes when you get there, there's something else that's going to be hard, right? Or it's going to be hard to look the aftermath of whatever's happening now, and then you heal from that, and then some other shit happens, and this trauma, and so it's like, I think what's important is these reps, if you will, or this moment, this suck. It's actually, you're not crumbling, you're growing, right. And but muscles have to contract in order for force to come out, right? And so it feels like it feels like it's crushing you, but instead it's strengthening you. But to say that to someone as they're going through this shit
hard.
Is not. You can't say that to them, right? Or you can, but it doesn't register. It's not until you look back and go, oh, I was growing through that.
My mom asks. She's asked me before, don't you wish you had a crystal ball? And I tell her, no, because I believe I'm here to learn all of this and to change past karmas and past behaviors and past experiences. And if I had a crystal ball, if I knew what was coming, I wouldn't be able to live in the suck now. And again, I hate living in the suck and I fight it, which I shouldn't. So again, don't fight it. It makes it worse.
Yeah. See, you're leading by example right now.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, but here's the thing. Here's where I would push back on your mom and maybe what you just said. We all have a crystal ball. You know why? Because we know where the fuck we're going. We're going to die.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know what's going to happen between here and death, but that is the destination, period. Like you're hoping your destination is a place where you breathe, and you probably will get there. And everybody, whoever's listening, you're hoping that you get that promotion or you get this or whatever, and you will. Or you won't, but I can guarantee. Somebody said to me, what did they say? There's two things that are guaranteed in your life and or taxes and death. But taxes aren't guaranteed. You can just not pay your taxes.
Right.
It sucks. You will go to jail, but you can choose to not live your taxes. There's just two things that are guaranteed in life. Just two things: death, and the fact that you have to live with yourself until you get there. So you better figure that part out, because that's in your control. You can't really control how you die for the most part. But my point is, we do have that crystal ball. We know we are going to die. That is guaranteed. If you don't, that would be insane. Like, you'd be the first time ever, right? Ever. And so we know that for sure. And we know that we have to live with ourselves until then. So figure that part out. Figure out how to live within yourself, with yourself, by yourself, for yourself. That's going to be a part of it. And so I push back on your mom. We do have a crystal ball. And
well, I think her definition of crystal ball is, don't you wish you know how everything went in life? You know?
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, hers.
No,
I mean,
the
I think
answer's
hers
no.
is more of, yeah. Don't you wish
like it now.
you could see into the future? And I'm like, I know, I don't.
But I
I mean,
guarantee
maybe
you in
once
100 years,
before,
we're
but-
all going to be dead. I mean, if we're not dead, we'd be the oldest person ever.
Remember, I'm dying at like 80 or 81.
I'm dying at 55.
Don't take that from me.
I'm dying at 55. So
Don't
my point is I can
No,
see crystal
not
ball
50.
for 2175, and we're going to for sure all be dead. So don't worry about that. Okay, Michelle, I have a question for you.
Yes.
We didn't get to address this at this point because I kind of wanted to ask you this last time, and that's actually why we decided to wait for this episode. So, quick recap: this entire time up till when you're in this facility, nobody has ever really like sat you down to be like, "Oh, maybe it was the fact that you were sexually abused as a 3-year-old. Maybe it was that your mom was a drug addict or whatever." Like this whole story, right? At what point during the therapy is your first, what Brooke just referred to as an aha moment, where you went, wait a minute, holy shit, like all of a sudden things are starting to make sense and your actions are no longer guilt and shamed, although you still feel that way sometimes, but like all of a sudden your actions go, oh, well, that would make sense that a person who's experienced this is behaving like this.
When I started therapy after being in the mental hospital, and I finally found the courage to dig in and release a lot of that childhood stuff. So I think I knew it. I carried it around with me, but I had suppressed it. I remembered it, right? I didn't totally block it from my brain, but I had just suppressed it. So it wasn't until I found a really good therapist, and she was incredible. And it took a couple, right? I had to try a couple therapists before I found the one that like got me and I got her. And we started digging in, and she didn't even want to talk about my marriage and my present circumstances. She wanted to talk about how I got there. And so that's when I started to have those ahas to say, oh, okay, I'm not broken. Something happened to me and I responded in the only way that I knew possible. And every time I had those sessions, and I was going weekly, right? It was important that I was doing the work weekly. And I was learning and reading and praying and meditating and doing all of the work that I started to, it sounds so cheesy, but really blossom and started to be like, okay, that happened, but I'm still here and I can be the Michelle today because of the Michelle 25 years ago or whatever, however old I was. So I think I still have ahas. I had ahas today, right? Like I'm still having those ahas. And I don't think I'll ever reach being fixed or being healed.
That is gold right there. That is gold.
Yeah.
That is gold. If you're doing it right, the aha moments will
keep
never
going.
end.
Yeah.
If you're doing it right, you will constantly be learning. And the only clarity, true clarity you're going to have is when you die. And
Crystal ball.
I mean, people think I'm going to go to therapy and work on this and I'm going to do it for a year and then I'm going to stop. I mean, if you're doing it right, you are constantly aware and trying to change. Like after some of the stuff that I've done, I was like, okay, I've got this. And then something else would pop up, something new that I knew I needed to work on. And I was like, oh shit, here we go again. Yeah. And it took a couple of times of that for me to realize when it's supposed to happen, when it's supposed to pop up, it's going to pop up. It's not like I'm going to master this one situation or this one issue, or that I'm doing this and I did residential trauma and OCD program and all of this, and that all of a sudden there's going to be nothing more for me to work on or to heal.
Yeah, it's like an achievement. It's like a degree or something. We think of it like, oh, you graduated with your doctorate in healing. Good job. It's over.
Nope.
Yep, you're done.
No, bitch. You're gonna suffer some more. And you're like, oh, great.
Well, that's what I mean. Honestly,
I didn't mean
my
to call you
belief
B-word. I
is
was just saying, like, life says that to you. It wasn't me saying that to you. Sorry.
But I feel that that's what life is about. I don't believe we're supposed to. I mean, we're supposed to learn how to find joy and happiness and purpose in situations that are life. I don't believe life is supposed to be like this fairy tale. constant, we're happy, everything's going right, there's nothing wrong. No, that's going to happen your entire life. Your job is to learn. Your job is to find joy. Your joy is to find purpose, alongside all of the hardship. It's not an and or, right?
Nope.
This episode's so good, man. I think I mentioned this before when we were going through stuff with my kid at the NICU, but literally as we were walking from the delivery room to where they were taking to the auxiliary room, because clearly something was wrong and like everything felt like it was crashing. As it was crashing, I remember every step I took, I remember thinking all of this time, because, and correct me, maybe it's just me, but you guys, was there ever a point where you guys were kind of feeling like, you thought this, but you didn't pursue this thought? It just came into your brain and it left as quickly as it came. But there was a part of you that was like, why me? Like, why does this always fucking happen to me? Right. And in my life, always heart surgery and pain and almost getting murdered by terrorists and moving to a whole country and racism. You don't pay attention to that part because you're strong and you want to continue. But there is like a little voice in your head that's like, but why me? Right. As I was going to that auxiliary room and every step I took, I thought of all the things I'd gone through in my life as the answers to why me. It was finally an answer to I'm like, oh, it's because I was getting primed so that when this shit happened and I needed to be a dad and a father and strong and tough in a healthy way, not in like a hide it all under the rug, but like really like, oh, I'm okay. That's why I went through all that shit in my life so that right now I could be chill. Now, it doesn't mean it's not going to be traumatic and that I'm not going to have to do work on this later. But at least up to this point, I know who I am in shitty situations. So be the best version of that, right? And so, and then again, nah, bitch, you're going to suffer some more. My kid's going to have a problem, or my wife's going to have, my dad's going to die. Something's going to happen tomorrow, next year, next month, hopefully never, but it will. And then I'll be back there going, yep, okay. Rio has some stuff with her heart. It's the first time I think I've made this public, that we won't know about until she's 3. But I was, a lot of times I've been sitting with Bree and I'm going, you know what? But we got through it one time. It's gonna suck then, and it's gonna be different because she'll be older and we'll know her more and all this stuff, so it won't hit the same. But fucking, we got through it one time. We'll get through it 100 times if we have to. The trick is not to give up on it and to stay on it and to So my point is like. Why you? Well, maybe you don't know yet, but at some point something's going to happen that's good, that you deserve, and because you are a human being and you deserve greatness and love and care. And when you get there, you're going to go back and go, oh, that was why. And then, nah, bitch.
I know. Well, but that's so great because I'm sitting here, you're making me question my why, right? And I didn't even have to think about it. It just came to me. Like, why am I fighting so hard to learn and gain the tools and find joy and make decisions that I'm making that suck right now, but it has to be done? It's because I refuse to let toxic generational patterns and behaviors trickle down anymore.
Cycle
like
breaker.
To our kids. I am done. If nobody else is going to do it, I'm fucking going to do it. Like, I refuse to let my girls to let them experience what Jordan experienced and what I experienced, because that has been a commonality in our household for a long time. And I am doing everything I have to. Like, I have been slowly building over time because it is so important to me. It is so important to me that they don't experience and that they grow up and have the tools and be stronger and have the self-esteem and not carry forth the anxiety and the anger issues and the frustration and all of that bullshit, because it's still rampant in certain ways. And I'm like, if nobody else is going to change it,
you got to do it.
I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do what it takes. Because maybe that is my purpose here. Maybe my purpose is to finally, because those patterns that have been passed down, those are not pretty on either side. And I'm done. I'm so tired of all of it and dealing with it.
And like Michelle mentioned, like, oh, sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Like Michelle mentioned, like because this is a very important point, and I think you both are examples of this, where you both have started talking about taking my power back, right? That's some superhero shit, right? Now, you also have, it's helpful in your life, and if you have these people, please lean on them. Like, very I was going to ask you this about Michelle, where you had a shame with your sister because you didn't want to call her because it looked perfect on the outside. There's like this guilt, but if you have the superpowers and your supporters are the cape, right? You still have to go and save your own world and figure it out on your own, but you can lean on people and don't be ashamed to do so and ask for help because that's important. So to what you guys are saying, like it's still your responsibility. And what Brooke just said, nobody's going to come and save you. Everybody's dealing with their own shit. Nobody's going to come and figure it out for you. Nobody's going to fix it for you. Is it your fault? Maybe. Is it your problem? Absolutely. You have to deal with this. You have to get through this. You have to learn from this. You have to grow from this. You have to do all these things. Still, though, ask for help. And so my question then for Michelle is, at what point did you start going, ooh, this is like, because Brooke also had people, Jess came and helped you with Mallory when you were in the hospital. There's like these people that have shown up in your guys' lives to get help. How do you see that now? Like what are ways that you can encourage other people who maybe are listening, going through some shit, to be like, hey, look up. Don't be ashamed to ask for help.
Yeah. So I think the biggest takeaway that I've had through the therapy is transparency. You will always get the full transparent truth from Michelle. I'm going to tell the good, the bad, the ugly. I joke, like I was super honest about my kids when, they would make a mistake. I never wanted to be like, oh, everything's perfect. I have perfect angels. I'm like, no, they're human. I'm going to talk about it. So I think I learned that transparency. And so with that came getting real with your people, right? And everyone has their people, whoever it is, friends, coworker, family,
Podcast host.
host, being able to ask for help and accept the help. I mean, my mama and papa are my heroes in my story. They are my real heroes. They showed up. They would come spend 6 weeks or so every spring here in Florida with my boys and I to watch them play ball, to feed me, to love on me, to just be present. And there was never a moment when they weren't here with me that I couldn't call and say, I'm struggling. I need you. This is what's happening. Many times my papa would get in the car and he would drive here. And him showing up for me as a man, a safe man, was invaluable. And he healed me and he didn't even know he was healing me. So I guess to the folks, to the women, to the people, men who are in the situation, you have to have the vulnerability to just trust one person to be able to open up and ask for help. And even if the help is just being able to talk about it, like, I just need you to listen. I don't need you to fix. I don't need you to solution. I just want you to listen, is so helpful.
Yeah.
But now
you don't need to get to a breaking point.
You don't. Nobody needs to get to a breaking point. And like I said, now the people that are my people in my tribe, they know Michelle's going to give it like it is. I'm going to share the ugly and the raw, because I think there's been a perception of me in particular that people see me and they have an immediate, we all do it, right? I can look at both of you and I can write my own story about what I assume to be true about you, and that's totally not the case. Now that I know you, it would be totally false, right?
Except for I am a good dancer. I know you were already thinking that, but damn,
I already do. So that's facts. That's facts. So I think people, women especially, because women are hard on other women, have this perception of me and where I come from, what I am, and I'm the first to like spill it out, like, oh no, like, well, let me tell you my story. Like, this is me and this is who I authentically am. And the cover never matches the context of the inside. And so I always try to like penetrate that when I encounter new people. Like, I want to know you. Like, how are you? What's going on? I want to know who you are.
Yeah. I understand that. That's why I show up to these podcast episodes without any makeup on. I want people to really see me for who I am. That's like
gorgeous.
Look how bald I am. Anyway, so that's a good answer. Brooke, do you have anything to add to that? Because I feel like there's people in your life too that you lean on now, where maybe before not as much, and so the people that have shown up in your life have been really helpful too.
Actually, what's been really awesome about the journey especially recently, like I'd say in the past, I don't know, 3-4 months, is that, and since I started this podcast, let's say too, with that, and the reconnections I made, I don't like the Brooke before would be like, oh, you're just reaching out to me because I have a podcast. Like I haven't talked to you in 6 years or 7 years or maybe even longer. And you just want to talk to me because that's a trauma for me, because that was my dad. My dad had no idea what I did for a living. He had no idea I was a graphic designer. He knew I was a professor, probably couldn't tell me what I did. But as soon as we were out on the, in the media, on TV, on, doing whatever, with our nonprofit Living for Logan, when we had it, oh, he was sharing the shit out of that. Right. And so I learned from my dad that people only come around when you're doing something important. So, during the journey in the before, or since 2016, if people would fall off, I would shut myself down from them, because I'm like, oh, you're just a sprinter. You were just there in the immediate, and now you've fallen off and don't want anything to do with me. But since I started the podcast, and people have been reaching out, and even before I started that, the growth that I have been through has allowed me to soften that belief system in me that, oh, people just, they can't handle me. I'm too heavy, whatever. And I have started to find renewed relationships. One of them with an old friend. She was my best friend in middle school. Her name's Kim. We've been talking a lot. She visits. Yeah. Hi, Kim. I'm super excited to finally begin to mention your name. But we're in constant contact with each other. I feel like I can talk to her at this point about anything. And I really hadn't talked to her since middle school, but we were best friends in middle school. And she lives in Indy still, and her husband comes down to Nashville for work. So the next time they're down, we're going to meet up. One of my closest, dearest friends that I've known for decades. Her name's Stephanie. And in fact, she grew up next to Jordan and Jess, and was telling us all sorts of stories. But she came down and spent some time with us this past weekend. And that was really important to me. Her and I mean, and then Carolyn's coming down this weekend. And it's been, and of course, Jess and Melanie and, Amy and, now Michelle. And I feel so grateful that I'm allowing myself to open up to community again. Because I think I mentioned this either in this episode or this past episode or the one about boundaries, that really community is everything. It really, truly is. Not everybody's going to be able to hold the space for what you need, but there are going to be others that will. And that, to me, finding those people in whatever capacity they can be for you is essential. It's just so important. And I don't want to do life moving forward without having a community, as Michelle mentioned, a tribe. I can't. I put it off. I pushed it away for so very long, and it's a lonely place to be, and it sucks, and you have no one. And I really feel sorry for people who don't recognize that for themselves. I mean, I was the same way. So I feel sorry for, past Brooke, but I'm right there. It's having those people that you can drop and call. And I would really get myself in trouble if I didn't bring up my mother as well. So my mom moved down this summer, and that's been a godsend. I was so happy she was, for a multitude of reasons. And then the past couple of months, it's really just strengthened my ability to work through what's going on. And so my long story for a short answer is community. I'm right there with Michelle. It's community. I mean, I want to have a whole entire, in fact, Michelle, I'm just going to throw this out on the air. Andreas and I were talking about having you and Melanie together on the show, so the four of us could talk topics or about community. I mean, I have a whole list of people that I want to share their experiences with. And we could see if Amy wants to come at some point. I'd love to get Amy on individually, and then, bring her on too. But I think that there's so much power in having a round table discussion and everybody throwing in, their experiences and their beliefs, because if I'm just sitting here talking the whole time, you're just getting my experiences, my viewpoint. But it's been so interesting here as we've brought on guests to see everybody ping pong back and forth. And sorry, everybody listening. This is actually, kind of like business talk for the behind the scenes. And
but no, it's great.
It's going to give you an idea of what's coming,
but
because
we can build a community through this. Yeah.
Right. And we are, do you want to talk about the other community you're building, or do you want to hold that for another time?
We'll hold that for a sec.
Okay.
I think fair. So we get more details out, but
got it.
Stuff's coming. There's a good teaser.
Stuff's coming.
I think
Mickey
last
loves
question.
a teaser.
Yeah. I think last question, for time's sake, so we don't take up all your afternoon, is when you look back now, and there's people who are listening who might need to hear this. Where did you find the courage to admit the faults? Because sometimes you're the first person that we've had, and I guess Brooke did this too in her own way, and this is a question I guess for both of you. The last guest we had was Melanie, and shit happened to her, right? Like her husband was killed essentially, and Brooke's son was killed. So those are things that there was no control for them. But as you were in this marriage, you kept taking on this like responsibility, whether it was yours or not. That's a whole different conversation. But even admitting, for example, about the affair, or admitting that you were doing this wrong, or like, where do you find the courage for that? Because I feel like people want to just say, oh, it's all happening to me and I have no control. But you were really good at acknowledging the parts that you played. And that takes a lot of ovaries to do that. You know what I'm saying? How do you find that? Where can you have people, how can you help someone who's listening going, hey, there's a part of this that you own that you need to, because it's different than Brooke and Melanie's. Shit happened to them, whereas yours, you had some stuff there.
Sure. It is a fine line, right? Because there could be a woman listening that is in the throes of a truly volatile domestic violence situation. And I don't want her to think, oh, well, it's my fault.
Right.
That's not at all what we're saying, right?
Yeah, correct.
I think I was able to take my own ownership because in the still of the night, it's just me, right? Like I can surround myself with community. I can go to therapy. I can interact with my voice, but in the still of the night, those thoughts are just mine and mine alone. And I had to own them. I had to be accountable. If I was going to hold others accountable for what had happened in my life, I had to find the accountability for where I contributed. And whether I knew better or didn't, I had to have that accountability. And also I'm sorry, I have to finish that thought with forgiveness, right? Once I had that accountability, I had to find forgiveness. Just the same way I had to forgive my parents, I had to forgive my offenders, I had to forgive myself. And I am a Christian, so I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have my own forgiveness from the Lord. So it played out in my own therapy, I guess, like it not played out, but it revealed itself the way that it was intended to. And I'm quick to offer forgiveness because there's so much power in forgiveness when we can truly let it go and know that whatever happened, like that, it wasn't because of me, but I'm going to forgive you and I'm going to let that go. I'm not going to hold on to it. And it allows me to just be a better human.
And at the end of the day, you grow from that because that forgiveness is ultimately for you.
Yep.
I mean, it can be like for them, right? But if people really, truly want to heal themselves, they have to find the forgiveness in others and other situations for themselves. I forgive this experience because if I hold on to it, I'm still giving it power. And the more power it has, the worse I feel. So I have to let that go. Now, there is a thing about forgiving them and them continuing similar behaviors. I need to make that very clear. Like you can forgive them and they're still creating the same behaviors, or they're still practicing the same toxic behaviors or doing the same things. And you can create boundaries with that, and that's okay too. So just because you forgive them doesn't necessarily mean it means you're going to have a relationship with them or you're going to take care of them or any of that. You are forgiving them so it doesn't live within your body anymore. So you can let go of that. And it's also okay to still create boundaries. And very big boundaries if absolutely needed.
Shut it down. Shut it down.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody.
You're welcome.
It's great.
That mic.
See you later. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed.
Listen. You know what? I don't know that I'm like I mentioned. I'm not going back to school, right? I'm just waiting. Not in this moment. I think there's something bigger out there if I go back to school than what I was pursuing previously, but. Man, I'm waiting for someone to come on and be like, you're talking all this stuff and you're not licensed. I'm going to be like, but I'm licensed in the many years of work and residential trauma. I've learned a shit ton. And that, just to circle back one more time, that is the reason I can listen more to my spiritual side and say everything I've been through all throughout my life has been exactly what was supposed to happen, because I like who I am and what I've learned and what I can speak so much more today than the scared little girl who was codependent and needed to caretake not all that long ago.
So I think this means we have to have a panel episode with you and Melanie and Brooke, and we just have like either a Q&A or just like or like one answer.
Q&A would be awesome.
Yeah.
On it. Sweet. Well.
All right, guys. Well, thanks
I know we have to wrap it up because this has gone far longer than any of us thought, but I have to wrap it up to say, yes, I ended up with a divorce, but there was a whole journey of co-parenting with that person, with all of that anger, all of that hurt.
I had that as a question, but I figured that'd be a long answer.
I know.
Yeah, it's not. I don't have to go into that detail, but I just have to put it out there that like, oh, you didn't sign the divorce papers, and then it was like poop, everything was magic. Like it's been a progression, right? And it required a lot of grace. Brooke, I hear you talk about grace a lot on all of your episodes, and grace was certainly required, patience, and that it's a fine line, that love-hate, it's right there, right? Like we would cross over it. And I still, to this day, want nothing but goodness and happiness for my boy's dad. I want him to have peace. That's what I pray for, him to find peace. But I don't have to be a part of it anymore, right? Like, boys are young adults. It's now, I've equipped these boys to have their own adult relationships with their dad, and I no longer have to be a part of it. So I didn't want to put that false hope out there like, oh, it's just magically okay, because co-parenting is difficult.
Yeah.
But worth it.
And you remarried, right?
I am remarried.
Okay, so which is right where we left off with Melanie too, about like how did you like
our saints of husbands that we both got.
then you started to look for someone else and then have that hope again despite everything you've gone through. And again, you guys both remarried it from different circumstances, but still there's lessons to be learned on that. So maybe that's actually the first question of the Q&A where we go, hey, how the hell did that happen?
And I'll just sit here and drink my protein drink.
We'll just ask you questions. Well then, but for you, you know, there's like, it's the bigger question is, how do you go back to a source of trauma, right? How do you go back into drive a car again and drive on the freaking highway again, right? Or like that stuff happens, and you know, people don't really think about it until they have to face that fear again. And it's a whole different ballgame now, just that you experience all this stuff. So, there's so much more cool shit we can talk about.
I love it.
Okay.
Yep. I love it.
On that note, keep an eye on the community that we're building. More on this later. And if you like the show, thank you so much. Make sure you guys leave us a review, please. That would help a lot. It's the best way to support the show non-financially. However, if you're listening and you're like, I'd like to sponsor or figure out how to support the show financially, also message us. We obviously always would be welcome and open to that. On that note, my name's Andres Gamboa, Brooke Shearer, and then Michelle Bandy Davis. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for being vulnerable.
Thank you.
By the way,
thank you.
I don't know I think we mentioned this in the last episode, but we for sure didn't mention this episode. This is like the first time you've told this entire story like this openly or publicly. So thank you for the courage for that as well. That was even alone. That's encouraging, inspiring.
Much
and
gratitude
humbling.
to you.
So
thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.